With that, I'm very pleased to turn to our next presenter and introduce Adam Temple, the CEO of Evolved Extraction Solutions. Adam is a cannabis technologist and the founder of Evolved Extraction Solutions. He's a leading expert in the field of extraction technologies, facility and process design, and with a focus on continuous trials and evaluations at their technology center, Adam and his team strive to provide cutting-edge solutions for the cannabis industry's most pressing challenges. His company offers a range of technical services, including consulting, training seminars, and facility design to go along with a cutting-edge lineup of extraction and refinement equipment. Their business model thoughtfully aligns their interests with the long-term success of their clients through a service-first approach. And today he's going to share his presentation, Enhance Product Value, Free Up Capital, and Lower Production Costs in Your Cannabis Extraction Business. So with that, I'm very pleased to welcome Adam aboard and pass the mic to him. Thank you.
Hey guys, thanks so much for your time. My name's Adam Temple. Thanks for the awesome introduction there, Eric. And I'm going to be sharing with you a little bit about what we do to help you save cost and stay ahead of your competitors. And a lot of what we're going to be talking about today is under our Genome brand. It's a hydrocarbon extraction product line, as well as a line of services that we offer. So let's dive into it. So how Genome technologies and services can help your business. We enhance product value, lower costs with the controlled crash method. So we have a new method for optimizing the extraction process that actually is able to isolate THCa and separate it from terpene, high-terpene extract in the extraction process. This obviously allows you to really contain the massive cost of inventory. You're able to use this method to produce a number of different extracted and concentrated products in a just-in-time manufacturing system. Because you've isolated those compounds, you can then reformulate them just in time for your customers. And then the second segment, we're going to talk a little bit about how we can help you mitigate costly mistakes when you're setting up your extraction facility or doing an expansion. And finally, the cost of training employees. We have some services, including seminars going on in our technology center, and I'm excited to share with you some of those opportunities for us to help you outsource your training requirements and stay ahead of the competition with the latest and greatest in extraction techniques. Just want to check, can you guys see the slides all right?
Yeah, we're seeing how Genome technology and services can help your business.
Perfect. So we'll start with the controlled crash method and looking at how it differs from the traditional extraction and refinement method. So this is a very traditional method using CO2 extraction, a CO2 extractor, a separate winterization process with all having its own equipment, then being pushed downstream into a decarboxylation reactor and then into distillation equipment, where in the distillation process, there's 2 stages of distillation, and then you have a final output, which is just pure distillate. Obviously, there's a lot of challenges to this process. There's a lot of downsides and costs. You got many separate isolated processes, so these aren't performed in line in one contiguous process, and that makes it very labor intensive. And one of the big problems with this process is also the low value of the output. And a lot of that is due to the fact that terpenes are actually destroyed in this process. I don't know if any of you have ever smelled the fragrance of terpenes after it comes off of a distillation process. A lot of people lovingly refer to that as hot dog water. It does not smell good. It's not useful in, to be reformulated into products, because the terpenes are degraded in this process. It applies a lot of heat, and terpenes don't really like heat. So you kind of lose the terpenes, and that's one of the reasons why the value of the output from this process is pretty low. And so what I hear from a lot of processes, they don't even really want to make distillate. It's too low value and too much labor cost. there's not enough upside to actually even get into the manufacturing of the input ingredients. Now, what if we could use a method that goes directly from the biomass, whether that's fresh frozen or cured biomass, and directly into a high terpene extract and a isolated THCA or CBD isolate directly in one process in one machine. And that's what the controlled crash method offers. You're able to do very high volume production, so 20-liter batches. You can do that up to 4 times in a day. So this method will never become the bottleneck, or typically not a bottleneck in any extraction facility or manufacturing facility. You're able to isolate the THCA and crystallize it, and that's what you're actually seeing in this replaying GIF right here, is what we call the snow globe effect. So it's a controlled reaction that actually accelerates once the reaction starts, and within a few seconds, all the THCA is crystallized inside the extraction process, and you're able to then separate out the high terpene extract, which you see as kind of the darker color there. And being able to separate those two very early in the extraction process, or very early in your production of products, allows you to create a very wide array of different products with this. So you have extreme versatility. You can make everything from infused pre-rolls to edibles to diamonds and sauce, and pretty much every dab product that you can imagine. So the versatility is really outstanding when you're able to isolate and separate these two compounds and then store them as bulk ingredients. And a single production line, as well as this being a patented process. So all of our customers get access to the patent. You never have to worry about somebody else coming after you, because you're granted rights to use the patent when you work with us. So this looks a little bit like this: loading the biomass in, perform the extract, isolate and separate, all one machine, all one process, all piped together. There's no transferring between processes. And the output is a much higher value. For one thing, high terpene extract is, it's a little bit more challenging to keep those terpenes intact in the extraction processes, because they are so heat sensitive. And so they end up being a little bit more high value. You can make products like really flavorful vape cartridges, all sorts of different dab products. And so the high terpene extract is a little bit of a higher value product. And THC isolate is also higher value than distillate. And we'll talk a little bit about why that is. And it's mostly because of the versatility. You can really make any product out of it. You can make, it's the base ingredient for essentially every cannabis product on the market. A huge advantage of this is also that you reduce product loss. Throughout the traditional extraction processes, every one of those stages, there's a transfer between the steps. You're transferring it from one process to the next, you're handling it. There's labor costs associated with that. There's an operator for each one of those machines, but you're also losing a little bit of product in each transfer. And as well as losing product when you're doing the distillation. There's some loss every time you do the distillation. And so removing all of those steps maximizes your the retention of the valuable products that you want to use as inputs into your consumer products, and minimize those labor costs and refinement losses. Here's a quick video just showing how fast the process is. Prior to this, there's an extraction process. The crude was collected in this vessel. This is all integrated into the extraction machine and piped in. And the crude's collected here. And once the crude and the solvent get to just the perfect viscosity, we start to execute the crystallization process. And as you can see, the crystallization kind of is like a cascading reaction, and it completely takes over the entire vessel. I'll play that one more time. After that, you can actually drain off. There's still liquid in there. There's liquid terpene extract, and we use additional solvent to wash that away and separate that into another vessel where it's separated from the solvent. And the output is two extracts, one high-terpene extract and one 97% plus THCa isolate that can then be either melted down into a liquid, what we call liquid diamonds, or it can be reformatted into a bunch of different products. And that's really the value that of using that method, is the versatility. So with an isolate, we have unlimited options for formulations. One of the really popular products right now is infused pre-rolls. So with the isolate, you can actually just mix a solid with a solid, in the sense that you're taking that THCa isolate and you're homogenizing it with the ground cannabis flower. And you're able to bump up the concentration of your flower, to whatever your consumers are desiring. And as the joint burns, it actually melts down into the flower, and that solid becomes a liquid, and it infuses in real time into the flower. I really like that product. It's got a really nice thick smoke to it, and it burns super, super well. But with using the isolate, you can also regrow diamonds. You can melt that down, like I mentioned, into what we call liquid diamonds. That's a fantastic ingredient for your high terpene vape carts. That liquid diamonds is a great ingredient for edibles, and it allows you to do just-in-time manufacturing, because when you have these base ingredients already separated, you can then reformulate them on demand for your customers when they make their orders. So let's take an example. How does this method contain the massive cost of inventory that manufacturing companies have to endure? Well, I'll give you the example of Jim's Cannabis products. They've got 5 consumer products, and their customers' consumer preference are continuously changing. So Jim's products are, they've got a vape, they've got diamonds and sauce, they've got shatter, they've got caviar, and they've got a gummy, an edible. And each one of these products has 5 flavor SKUs. So with the vape, for example, maybe that's super lemon, like a haze variety of flavors. Maybe there's some cookies and some kush flavors. And these are all cannabis-derived terpene flavors. And same thing for the diamonds and sauce. Shatter edibles is a whole different variant of food flavorings. Each one of these is found on average about 10,000 units is the ideal amount to have in stock. And the average cost for each one of these units is $12. So, 5 products, 5 SKUs times 10,000 units times $12. He's got 3 million in inventory. And what he finds is that sometimes, with this a live resin flavor, all of a sudden the consumers are really demanding it. He bumps up his number of units from 5,000 to 20,000. But after that surge in demand, it kind of drops off. And then he's stuck with 20,000 vapes that are moving slow. And that really just adds to the need for a high inventory asset. So you really need to have that $3 million tied up. And why is that? Well, let's use that live resin vape as an example. So in Jim's example, these are the yellow arrows. And Jim has to decide which process to use at the biomass preparation stage. So Jim wants to make a a live resin vape cart, he has to choose live biomass and use an extraction process and a refinement process that is specifically for that end product. So the extraction he uses is a hydrocarbon extraction, and then the refinement is what a lot of people call liquid live. So they will decarboxylate live resin so that it's suitable for a vape cart. It doesn't crystallize in the vape cart, and it stays as a liquid. Now, the problem with that is that that's the only really viable product that he can make with that. Once he's distilled it, or pardon me, not distilled, but decarboxylated the oil, it's all the processes have aligned just for that one end product. And if he wants to turn that into diamonds and sauce now, he can't do that. If he wants to turn that into a shatter, he can't do that. And so he's really stuck with turning that into that 10,000 units of packaged consumer products. Now let's look at the controlled crash method. What Jim can actually do is every single time, the biomass preparation, extraction method, and refinement method always end in separation, separating out the THCa from the isolate, or the THC isolate from the terp sauce, and then reformulating those back together into what the consumers demand. So you can store the two ingredients, the high-terpene extract and the isolate, and then as he gets orders, reformulate those back together into the into what the consumer is ordering. And whether the consumer is ordering that liquid live vape pen, or if they're ordering diamonds and sauce, those two extracts can be reformulated and restructured into those new formats. So you can decide what products to make at the end, at the formulation stage, rather than at the beginning. It really just comes down to when that decision has to be made. That gives him that flexibility to react in real time to the consumer's demand for a variety of different products. So that's really the key, is having these two separated. And once you've separated this isolate and you're able to store it in bulk, you can then, this can be used for your edible product. It can be used actually to reformulate into shatter, caviar, diamonds, really any product on the market other than the solventless products like water hash and stuff like that. So that wraps up the first segment on the controlled crash method. We've also got all sorts of services available, which we'll talk about next, to help companies integrate these processes into their existing extraction equipment. So we have engineering services that helps design that integration and ensure that it's compliant. And we also have training and consulting services. So as it applies to the controlled crash method, we have an upcoming seminar called the Controlled Crash Seminar, and that's going to be happening at the end of July. And the rest of the segment, we'll talk about some of our services and how that helps companies save money and ensure that they avoid costly mistakes when they are setting up and expanding their facility. Some of the mistakes we often see, equipment collecting dust or decommissioned. And what I find a lot of the time, the reason for that is that either one, the company did not plan their future extraction production rates, or they had plans for future production rates, but the equipment that they needed at a larger scale was not affordable at a smaller scale. I also see a lot of equipment that was not reliable, or the vendor didn't provide adequate servicing to the equipment. And so it ended up collecting dust because they were not able to get the machine working again after the first time that there was any sort of breakdown or anything like that. We see that a lot with overseas purchases. So companies buying equipment from China, Chinese manufacturers, and there's no service or support available for those products. So once it breaks down, you're basically on your own, and we see a lot of those pieces of equipment kind of scrapped. Unexpected delays and unforeseen problems, a lot of that comes down to how the utilities are integrated into the extraction system. Companies trying to save money on compliance and poor planning resulting in costly rework. So actually getting something up and running and then realizing that it's not really what they need, and then having to kind of go back into more of like a construction phase, building new utilities and plumbing into the room and things like that as a result of the planning phase being skipped over, essentially. And then disjointed equipment. You can see this picture here, purchasing piecemeal equipment from different suppliers, and then a lack of planning around process flow and not energy balancing the various pieces of equipment. So buying a piece of equipment from one vendor and another from another vendor, and nobody's actually taking the time to do the process engineering to ensure that there's a consistent workflow and a consistent process flow between those pieces of equipment. And all that requires very specific energy calculations. How do we solve that? So we have commissioning services. They'll save you money, and they'll dramatically lower your risk when you're doing an expansion project or setting up a new facility. So we plan for future production rates, and we have the flexibility in our equipment that we can sell you lower cost equipment that is already designed for the larger scale as just a plug-in upgrade, like a ready to go upgrade that can be plug and play with your existing system. And so you get kind of the best of both worlds. You get the affordable starting cost, and you've got redundancy prevention later on to make sure that that same equipment is not going to become redundant when you want to go to a different scale. Sorry, obsolete would be the better term rather than redundant. And so we do this through a site planning process. I'll jump into that soon, what our process is. But it really eliminates any potential for rework from the trades. We see a lot of companies that because there's not one consolidated plan, maybe there's an architectural plan, and then there's other people that are procuring equipment, and those are not integrated into one plan. All the utilities for the equipment are not integrated from the facility into the equipment. And this image you can see here is an example of when one company designs the equipment layout as well as all the utilities, everything is planned in the right place, and there's very, very little need for rework. A really important thing to save cost is never having your production facility turned back into a construction site. As soon as you have production up and going, your customers are relying on you. You need to have, you need to fulfill their orders. And going back into a construction site can be very, very detrimental and extremely costly in lost business. And so the way that we manage your planning of your facility is ensuring that we are planning ahead for any future upgrades and allowing you to get off the ground at a low cost while also having everything you need in its place so that it's plug and play when you want to go to the next production scale. So this is an example of a site plan where the customer had about a $200,000 budget, and there's an ethanol extraction process, and they wanted to be able to double their throughput in the second year. And so we actually designed all the utilities, including the electrical panels, the chilling chiller utilities, as well as the plumbing and all the air compressors and everything like that was all planned for them in a way that allowed for it to be plug and play. So there's 2 other modules that are going to be plugged in here in the second year, and everything is already prepared for them so that when this upgrade needs to happen, they will not need to go back into construction, and they will not need to rethink their production process. Everything has been planned in the first stage to ensure that the second stage is as simple as a plug and play. And this will save them a tremendous amount of money. So for example, if they were going to get the smaller chiller and then have to get a second chiller, it would cost them about 80% more than if they were just going to get a larger chiller that was able to handle the second stage. And so this is what we see a lot, especially with heating and cooling utilities, is that they are really just sized for that initial purchase, and it's almost never is applicable as soon as you want to increase your throughput rates. Really doesn't cost a lot to do it. It's maybe on a 20 or 30% more to plan for the future and do that in advance, and it saves you a ton of money in the second year. So we have a 3-stage process for helping our clients do that. So the first thing we do is we lay it all out into what we call a user requirement specification. And so we align everybody on both our team and the client's team on what are all the requirements for the project. And this is actually one of the interesting parts. A lot of the times, many people have a wide variety of different requirements, even within their own team, that they are not even aware of from each other. And so this process really kind of fleshes out and has the teams kind of communicate and get alignment on what the project is. We find that the scope tends to creep, and everyone has a little bit of a different scope until it actually gets documented. And so this helps actually teams as well internally get alignment with each other on what the scope is for their project.
Adam, I have to jump in here. We're fairly far over the time here. Just in terms of a concluding statement, if you could. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no worries. So in conclusion, Evolve can really help your company take it to the next level, implement cost savings in expanding your facility, as well as training your staff. We've got a number of different hands-on comprehensive training programs, including the controlled crash method that I mentioned at the beginning. And yeah, let us know if you have any questions, and we're always here to help.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Adam, for the insightful presentation there, and just again, kind of the nod to the rapidly evolving consumer demand out there and the need to pivot quickly. It's certainly appreciated and certainly covers a lot of the cost saving themes we've been exploring today. So thanks so much for joining us today, Adam.
You bet.